Afternoon. My name is Dave Wentworth, and I'm going to be reviewing the case study for Lesson Plan 5 entitled Managing Crisis Projects, which covers the Tylenol poisoning. To summarize the case, in September of 1982, the national news broke the story of 7 people who had died after taking cyanide-laced extra-strength Tylenol. This was the first case of deaths ever tied to product tampering. The actions taken by Johnson & Johnson, the maker of the widely used pain reliever, in the hours following the breaking news captivated the public. The Johnson & Johnson company quickly initiated a crisis project team and took immediate action. Johnson & Johnson responded to the crisis in a manner that quickly proved they were not only compassionate to the families of those who had died, but also dedicated to discovering how this could have happened and determining how to prevent future occurrences of the crisis. In the early hours of the crisis, with little information to go on, the crisis project was managed using 3 phases. The first phase was discovery. The second phase was the assessment of risks and containment of potential damage. And the third phase was the establishment of a recovery plan and risk mitigation. The challenge was, the firm did not have time to run through the traditional project life cycle phases. Time was of the essence. The 3 phases need to be initiated in hours or days. Johnson & Johnson quickly jumped into a very close relationship with the media. James Burke, the CEO of the firm, decided that management of the crisis belonged at the top levels of his executive management and personally took charge of the project. Burke felt that this was a national crisis with the future of self-medication at stake. Burke also realized that the reputation of Johnson & Johnson was at stake. And Burke also knew that the McNeil division, which manufactured Tylenol, would not be able to manage the crisis alone. Quickly thrust into the position of leading the crisis management project team and serving as the corporate spokesperson as the firm responded to this major crisis. Over the next couple of months, the relationship with the media Burke had developed proved to be key to battling the crisis. Cooperation was key. Burke provided all information available. He promptly provided honest answers to every question. Burke was very upfront with all stakeholders to include consumers, the #1 priority of the firm, employees and managers, stockholders and lending institutions, and suppliers and government agencies. In managing a crisis, it quickly becomes evident that different stakeholders are going to view the actions of the company differently. Deciding which stakeholders' needs are the top priority can be a painstaking task, with some feeling slighted in the end. Johnson & Johnson, however, had a 45-year-old credo that made the decision easy. The credo established the following priorities. First, to the consumers. Second, to the employees. Third, to the communities being served. And fourth, to the stockholders. Worked diligently to come up with a new packaging solution. The Food and Drug Administration quickly mandated tamper-resistant packaging. Johnson & Johnson was the first in the industry to develop a triple-seal tamper-resistant package for over-the-counter medicine. Based on its interaction with the media and the stakeholders, the company retained the trust of the consumer. By Christmas of 1982, Tylenol had recovered 67% of its original market share. Now to review the case study questions. When a crisis project occurs, who should be the leader of the crisis team? As stated by Kersner, On crisis projects, the executive project sponsor will be more actively involved and may end up performing as the project manager as well. The project sponsor should function as the corporate spokesperson responsible for all crisis communications. As the focal point for all communications, the project sponsor is in the best position to speak on behalf of the organization with the media in informing the public. Will there be a crisis committee or crisis project sponsor? Yes. As stated by Kersner, a crisis committee should be formed and be composed of senior-most levels of management. The crisis committee needs to be involved with investigating the cause of the crisis, understanding the crisis, understanding the magnitude of the damage caused, resolving the crisis, and documenting lessons learned. How important is effective communications during a crisis? Communications is critical at all times during the crisis. It is very important to quickly and accurately communicate with the project stakeholders as well as the media and any government agencies. The consumer will be looking for information and answers. It is important to ensure all information is accurate and honest. Straightforward, honest answers will be viewed sincerely by the public. If the answers to questions are unknown, it is best to state that the answer is unknown at this time. Do not lie. How important is stakeholder relations management during a crisis? Stakeholder relations are very important during a crisis. There are many stakeholders. They include the following: consumers, stockholders, lending institutions, government, management, and other employees. Additionally, the media and government agencies are critical stakeholders the company needs to communicate with. The communications the company makes to the public through the media will be a critical factor in maintaining reputation and rebounding from the crisis. Should a company immediately assume responsibility for a crisis? The company should not jump to conclusions and assume responsibility. The important first step is to get the investigation rolling to determine the cause of the crisis. The company needs to be honest with the public and all stakeholders. Careful investigation prior to any acceptance of blame or accusation of other parties is critical. However, if it is known that the company was at fault or blame, then, as stated by Kersner, the company must assume responsibility for its products and services and its involvement in the case. How important is response time when a crisis occurs? Timeliness in crisis reaction is critical. The company must be very active right off the bat in determining the cause of the crisis and briefing the media and public on the cause of the crisis, the reasons for the crisis, the remedy or resolution the company will perform, and also proclaim its compassion for any injuries, deaths, or environmental impact that may have been caused by the crisis. The more rapidly the company responds, the better the company looks in the eye of the public and government agencies. As stated by Kersner, the way the public views the company's handling of the crisis has the potential to make or break the company. How important is it to show compassion for people that may have been injured? The company's social consciousness is very important. The company must address the media and public with sorrow and remorse for any injuries, deaths, and environmental impacts caused by this crisis. Corporate social responsibility must be a top priority, even above profitability. How important is it to maintain a paper trail? A paper trail is important during a crisis because it documents all actions, findings, communications, disclosures, and facts of the crisis for possible legal action in the future. The important aspect is to document everything, whether it reflects good or bad on the company. Truthful statements and documentations will ensure any future need for the information does not rely on hearsay or the need to recollect incidents, timing, and facts. How important is it to capture lessons learned? Lessons learned are critical components of any crisis. In fact, it is very important to keep an eye on how other companies respond to crises as well. An organization can learn a great deal from the crisis of other firms and other industries. Watching how others respond to crisis helps a firm prepare for their own crisis. The lessons learned by others will benefit each organization. In conclusion, the actions of Johnson & Johnson were prompt and effective. James Burke performed the job of crisis project manager and corporate spokesperson professionally and effectively. The reputation of Johnson & Johnson did not falter during the crisis. The close relationship James Burke developed with the media was key to crisis management and the company's successful handling of this issue. Johnson & Johnson was the victim in this case and was never regarded as the villain. The Johnson & Johnson company, and I as a consumer of Tylenol, have less headaches because of the way they handled this crisis. Thank you for your attention today. I hope you have a great day.